That deafening, bone-chilling hush just hit harder than any trashy supermarket tabloid headline ever could. For almost 20 years, we bought a total scam wrapped in expensive silk and fake Nashville charisma. We stared at Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban like they were some ultimate golden standard, the rare Hollywood fairy tale that actually survived. But at 58, that plastic porcelain mask has officially shattered. And what is rotting underneath is not just some midlife meltdown. It is the tactical destruction of a 19-year brand. Do you ever stop to think why the most flawless couples are always hiding the filthiest secrets? Why did the star who outlasted the Tom Cruise nightmare suddenly end up suffocating in a 46-room Swiss nightmare while everyone cheered for her fake joy? Well, get your popcorn and stay put because Nicole is finally done shielding the snake who left her freezing. We are dissecting a betrayal so ruthless, so ice-cold. It makes her old movies look like a preschool tea party. From hidden hotel bills to the total desertion during her deepest hour of mourning, the dream was never real. It was a perfectly staged prison. And today we are burning the whole thing down. The myth of Tinseltown's most solid marriage did not just vanish in one night. It cracked during a series of planned earthquakes that Nicole Kidman is finally brave enough to call what they actually were. For 19 years, the fans were fed a strictly edited story of a guitarist and a diva who had defeated the monsters of addiction and the stress of global movie schedules. But behind the doors of their giant mansion, the truth was a nightmare compared to those red carpet poses. At 58 years old, Nicole has finally quit playing the part of the quiet martyr. And the facts leaking from this mess are nothing less than a total collapse. This was not a boring case of drifting apart or the typical end of a long-term bond. This was a massive failure of loyalty that left one of the planet's most iconic women fixing her world from the floor, while the public was still clapping for her fake smiles. The drama focuses on a specific window where Nicole was her most broken, facing extreme personal grief and medical scares that would have ruined any normal human. While she was crying over the passing of her mother and the physical pain of a brutal fight with Lyme disease, her husband Keith Urban was reportedly building a completely separate life for himself back in Nashville. This part of the exposé reveals the early warning signs the fans overlooked, from the shady hotel bills tucked in the bags of a close friend, to the endless nights Keith spent in the booth that we now realize were not spent making any hits at all. It is a saga of a two-faced backstabbing that involves the guy she rescued from total ruin and the female she gave her deepest secrets to. Nicole has suggested in new interviews that she was trapped in a state of constant terror for years, sure that if she leaked the truth, the whole town would blacklist her. But the gag order is finally dead, and the mess is revealing a level of planned lying that beats any twisted script Nicole has ever acted. People working on her newest films saw a change in her vibe back in 2024. A frostiness that killed her normal glow every time her man's name popped up. The research proves that while Nicole was in Europe working, Keith was almost never there despite his loud claims of being her #1 fan. This marked the start of the nightmare, a phase where the calls got brief and the lies for his ghosting became more insane. We are discussing a guy who allegedly started funneling massive cash into secret banks and partying with a squad of people that Nicole Kidman had specifically warned him to stay away from years ago. The trashy reputation Keith Urban is battling now is not just about a messy divorce. It is about the absolute frost with which he treated his wife's mourning. When her mom died, a time that should have bonded them as one, Keith was reportedly more obsessed with his tour dates and his own shiny image than the mental trauma inside his own walls. This was the peak backstabbing for Nicole, who had carried him through the pitch-black nights of his addiction, and it paved the path for a lawsuit that would finally expose the total scope of his secret world. The drama spiked over months of rumors as fans saw Nicole hitting huge carpets alone or with her kids, but never with the guy who swore he was her soulmate. The dirty reports point to a string of insider leaks from inside their Swiss mansion, suggesting the maids were literally ordered to hide specific guests from Nicole while she was out of the country. This was a home built on fraud, and the depth of filth within the marriage itself is only just being fully grasped. As we peel back the layers of this mess, the fans are in total shock as the mask of the sweet country singer is replaced by the truth of a man who weaponized his wife's heart to fuel his own greed. The money trail alone is disgusting, with deep dives showing millions of dollars dumped into property deals that Nicole had zero clue about, and expensive jewelry bought for people whose names are only just surfacing in the court papers. This is way more than a Hollywood split. It is a look into the brain of a man who thought he was God and an icon who saw that her quietness was only fueling his ego. The stress during this time was thick, with insiders claiming the energy in their Nashville house was radioactive long before the lawyers ever showed up. Nicole was reportedly existing in a state of total panic, always checking the holes in Keith's stories and the weird gaps in his calendar. The deeper she searched, the more she hit a web of fraud that involved not just her man, but a whole team of snakes who had been helping him lead two lives for years. This was the hell Nicole was forced to survive while she was battling the brain fog of Lyme disease, which made her feel like she was actually going crazy. It was a nasty and planned strategy to keep her confused. And the world is only just realizing the guts it took for her to finally dump him. The horror of these leaks is even worse because Nicole was also protecting two young daughters during this chaos, trying to hide the rot that was eating their family alive. The data proves she started logging his lies way back in 2023, keeping a savage record of every time Keith vanished and those sketchy calls that died the second she walked in. This was a superstar playing the most grueling role of her career, faking for the cameras that her home was perfect while she was secretly plotting her exit. The wreckage from these early finds triggered a massive blowout in late 2025 that finally exposed the whole operation. It was during this toxic fight that the truth about the offshore banks and the other woman finally exploded, leaving Nicole with no choice but to file for divorce. The public fallout began as small gossip on social media, but fast became a tidal wave of support for Nicole as more dirt on Keith's games leaked to the press. Fans could not believe that the guy who had sang so many romantic hits about his wife was capable of such deep neglect and fraud. But as the facts show, the songs were just part of the scam to keep the world and his wife distracted. While he chased a lifestyle that was a total 180 from his sweet public image, the level of power tripping in the marriage was insane. With Keith allegedly using his pull in the music world to gag anyone who might have ratted on his moves, he had built a bubble of minions that was almost impossible to break. But Nicole's drive to find the truth eventually caused the crash of his entire fan club. As we move into the actual timeline of the mess and the specific drama that led to the final papers, the proof gets even more savage. This was a man who had the world and threw it in the trash for a secret that he thought he could hide forever. The search has pulled up texts and emails that show a level of hate for the marriage that is truly sick. Nicole was not just a partner to him. She was a trophy used to keep his status in Hollywood while he did whatever he wanted behind her back. The world is finally seeing the real Keith Urban, and the truth is far from the soft, soulful artist they thought they loved. This is the reality of the double backstabbing. The guy she trusted with her life, and the group of people who helped him lie to her every single day. The fallout is only just starting, and the hit to Keith's career and his name is going to be fatal as more people come forward with their own tales of his fraud. Nicole is standing tall, but the road to this point was built on a level of agony and betrayal that most people cannot even dream of. She is finally free of the lie, and as the case moves on, the full scope of what was done to her will leave the world speechless. This is the end of the first chapter of her freedom. But the saga of how she shredded the web is just heating up as the court files start to leak the names and the dates that ruined everything. The legal papers that started as a small leak of gossip soon mutated into a tsunami of proof that exposed the planned nature of the scam Nicole Kidman had been surviving through. As the deep dive shifted into the second stage of its collapse, the finding of the Nashville money trail became the smoking gun that flipped the whole story from a basic celebrity breakup to a total financial and mental heist. Investigators realized that the network of fraud was not just about him being a ghost. It was a massive financial scam involving millions of dollars in ghost assets. Leaked files from nameless sources inside the legal squad hint that Keith Urban had set up a string of shell firms, often using the titles of weird lyrics or old streets to hijack joint cash away from the family's main banks. While Nicole was jetting around the world, bagging trophies and selling their image, her man was allegedly playing high-stakes property games in parts of Tennessee that Nicole had never even seen. This was not just about the cash. It was about the total deletion of a marriage. The level of trashy spending found in these ghost accounts was insane, including top-tier luxury rides and private jet trips for people whose names were kept totally off the official household books. The rot of the marital bond was so foul that even Nicole's own staff members were reportedly being stalked by private spies hired by Keith to make sure his shady moves stayed in the dark. The fan reaction to these leaks was instant and nasty. People who had once cheered for Keith as the ultimate husband were now screaming for a total ban on his next tours. Online boards were choked with comments from people claiming to be ex-workers, all painting a picture of a guy who is obsessed with faking a life of sobriety and love while doing the exact opposite behind his wife's back. One viral but widely shared quote from a supposed ex-studio tech described the vibe as a castle of lies where everyone was bribed to look away while Keith hosted a revolving door of consultants who had zero actual job in his music career. The power trip became the main plot of the mess as it came out that Keith supposedly used his weight to stop local Nashville news from sniffing into his midnight hobbies. He had built a culture of terror and muzzling that copied the very industry snakes Nicole had spent her life trying to dodge. But the bank statements did not lie. The hotel bills, once dismissed as basic work costs, were checked against flight records that proved Keith was often hundreds of miles away from where he swore he was during Nicole's most dangerous moments of medical recovery. As the drama unraveled even more, the specifics of the two-faced backstabbing took a jet-black turn. It was not just the man. It was how close the snake was that hurt the most. Shady sources leaked that the other person involved was actually someone inside their inner social pack. Someone Nicole Kidman had actually welcomed to her mother's burial, a person who literally held her hand while she sobbed. The mental games required to sit across from a bestie while quietly shredding her marriage is a level of pure evil that the fans found impossible to overlook. The internet erupted with hashtag Team Nicole tags as the Globe watched a star of her status be targeted by such a messy and planned hit job. The deep dive also highlighted a string of hush-money bribes paid to ex-maids who had caught the cheating and were muzzled with legal threats that carried massive dollar fines. This was not just a slip-up, it was a corporate strategy of cheating. The level of rot inside the house was so thick that Nicole reportedly had to bring in her own squad of money experts just to track where her own millions had vanished. The data showed that she had been accidentally paying for the exact lifestyle that was killing her, funding the secret trips and the pricey trinkets used to keep her husband's side piece happy. The heat kept rising as more dirt leaked regarding the behavior of Keith Urban during Nicole's fight with Lyme disease. While she was drowning in the brain fog and the total fatigue that comes with the illness, Keith was allegedly weaponizing her weakness as a shield for his own vanishing acts. He told inner circles that Nicole was becoming unstable and losing her mind, essentially gaslighting her to the very people who were supposed to be her safety net. This was not just a fling. It was a character hit job meant to make Nicole look like the crazy one in the relationship. The world was disgusted to find out that while she was stuck in a hospital, Keith was spotted at posh Nashville clubs partying and cheersing with the very snakes who were helping him cover his trail. The nastiness of the timing is just beyond words. Nicole was at her absolute rock bottom, both in body and soul, and the man she called her sun and moon was actively drafting his escape while trying to rob her of her pride and her wealth. The search also exposed the 46-room Swiss palace, which had turned into a ghost of its former self. House workers, whispering behind closed doors, painted a picture of a split home. Nicole would be in one section, desperately trying to keep things normal for her girls, while Keith was in another, hidden in his studio with a constant stream of strangers and burner phones. The filth had even stained the security team, with some bodyguards reportedly getting double pay to forget certain people coming and going. This level of planned lying required a huge amount of teamwork, proving that Keith was not a lone wolf. He had a whole squad of enablers from greedy managers to fake friends who all cashed in on keeping the Nicole Kidman name clean while Keith lived his double life. The fan fury against these hangers-on was just as hot, with several famous Nashville names being canceled by association as the full truth of their help came out. As the court papers moved toward the final deal, the mountain of dirt made it impossible for Keith to keep up the act. The ghost bank accounts, the secret chat apps, and the legal statements from ex-staff built a wall of evidence that could not be dodged. The legal breakdown showed that Keith had even gone as far as taking out life insurance and second loans without Nicole's signature, a stunt that was basically criminal fraud. The mess was turning into a total money disaster for the Urban name as brands started to ghost him and concerts looked for any way to run away from the drama. But for Nicole, the cash was nothing compared to the reality. She was battling for her truth, refusing to let the snake who bit her write the final page of her story. She was taking back every single inch of that 46-room prison, cleaning out the filth and the scams that had poisoned her life for almost 20 years. The drama hit a boiling point when the world learned Nicole Kidman had busted them herself. Not with some fancy spy, but through a dusty baby monitor left in a guest suite. The irony of using a gadget meant to guard her kids to expose her husband's filth was a total gut punch to the public. The tape, which remains locked away but is detailed in court papers, reportedly caught Keith Urban and his side piece plotting to wait for Nicole's career to fade so they could snatch a bigger payday. This leak was the absolute end of his good guy brand. The man who made millions singing about blue ain't your color was trapped in the cold reality of his own black and white greed. Fans went from being stunned to demanding blood, calling for a total probe into the shady money moves within their charities. This rot was no longer a private fight. It was a public disaster threatening to bury the Nashville power players who had covered for him for years. As this chapter of the expose ends, the floor is falling out from under the Urban empire. As the law catches up to the mental scars he left behind, Nicole is done being the victim. She is now the star witness in a massive fraud case that is set to rewrite industry rules, leading straight into the legal bloodbath and the high-stakes fallout of the most explosive divorce in Hollywood history. The legal war moved with a terrifying, icy speed once the proof of money laundering and gaslighting became too much to ignore. As we hit the final stretch of this investigation, the fallout for Keith and his squad of minions has mutated from a PR disaster into a total legal and financial wipeout. The Tennessee courts, famous for handling messy rich people divorces, turned into the scene of the most one-sided settlement the state has ever seen. Thanks to bad faith rules and the hard proof of him stashing joint cash in shell firms, the judge's final word was a total execution of Keith's bank account. Reports claim the final papers signed in early 2026 snatched nearly 70% of Keith's cash and gave Nicole total control of the 46-room Swiss palace, the Nashville estate, and a huge chunk of the music royalties from their years together. This was not just a split, it was a court-ordered heist of the life Keith tried to steal. And the government is not done yet. Because of the sketchy shell firms and the millions sent to offshore banks, the IRS has reportedly jumped in with a formal probe into the rot found by Nicole's money team. This is where the Nashville elite officially started sweating. If Keith's team was helping him rob his wife, were they helping other superstars dodge the tax man too? Sudden resignations started popping up across the music world as big-time firms and agents scrambled to get away from the Urban fire. The terror of a federal raid on the Nashville money trail led to a wave of fast retirements and secret deals. As the industry saw that Nicole Kidman was accidentally unraveling a much bigger web of white-collar crime, the rage against the good old boys, who shielded Keith, turned into a riot, with fans demanding that the people who enabled this abuse of power finally pay the price. Deep in this money pit, the social and career death of Keith Urban has been just as brutal. His musical past, once full of massive hits and epic team-ups, is now buried under the image of a snake who plotted against his own wife's success. Music experts are already pointing out that Keith has not dropped a single hit or even a decent track since the mess exploded. His creative spark has basically died under the heavy weight of his own disgusting secrets. There is a sweet poetic justice in the fact that the very business that once bowed to him has now kicked him to the curb. His next tour dates were ghosted and scrapped due to timing issues, but the world knows the real tea. No stadium wanted to book the guy who became the face of the ultimate two-faced backstabbing. The public's hunger for his side of the mess was met with a pathetic, scripted note from his lawyers that only made people hate him more. Meanwhile, talk of a criminal case into the bribe money paid to the maids has kept Keith in a permanent state of legal panic. His bank accounts are bleeding out as he pays insane legal bills just to dodge a trial that would leak even more graphic dirt about his cheating. For Nicole Kidman, the result of dumping him has been the total opposite. Her comeback at 58 is a masterclass in staying classy and strong. By taking back her story, she did not just fix her name. She turned herself into a bulletproof legend of the business. The fan hate she was scared of never happened. Instead, she was hit with a global wave of love that has pushed her new movies to record-breaking numbers. Her choice to lead her daughters and work as a death doula shows a soul that is a world away from the pathetic greed of her ex. She has crawled out of the mud not just as a survivor, but as a winner. The stress of the last 2 years has vanished, replaced by a cool, sharp energy that has her bagging the biggest roles of her life. That 46-room palace is no longer a jail of lies. It is a safe space where she is raising the next line of Kidman women with the truth and heart she was robbed of for 20 years. The final crash of this drama is a warning to those in power who think their fame makes them immune to the facts. The law, the federal agents, and the court of the internet have all joined forces to make sure the double betrayal cost Keith Urban more than he could ever pay. As the smoke clears on the most nuclear star divorce of 2026, the ruins of Keith's life stand as a quiet warning about the price of planned fraud. The money disaster he is in now, mixed with losing his kids and his fame, is a self-inflicted shot that will likely never heal. The deep dive proves that while you can build a house on scamming, you cannot stop the truth from eventually torching it all down. Nicole Kidman is standing in the wreckage, but she is the one holding the match. Finally free to live a life that is not haunted by the ghost of a man she regrets ever meeting. The end is here. The raids continue, and the industry is waiting to see who else in Nashville gets burned in the urban fire. This saga proves even the shiniest fairy tales hide the sharpest lies. Nicole Kidman lost her man, her heart, and nearly her power. But in the end, she snatched something priceless, her soul. This fraud was planned. The scam was deep, and the crash was total. At 58, Nicole is not just resetting. She is reclaiming every single thing that was ripped away. While the guy who tried to crush her rot in the wreckage of a name he torched himself. It makes you think, right? How many other flawless Hollywood stories are just glass houses waiting for one bold soul to throw the first stone? Should Nicole have played quiet for the sake of the business? Or was she a hero for exposing the filth even if it burned down half of Nashville with her? Would you have the guts to blow up your own world to find the reality? Or would you rot in a 46-room palace and keep the lies? Post your thoughts in the comments. I am ready for the war on this one. And if this expose into the Kidman urban wreck finally showed you how this business actually functions, make sure to smash that subscribe button right now. We have another brutal deep dive dropping next week involving a legendary studio mogul and a vault of lost tapes that were never meant to be heard. Trust me, you cannot miss this. Stay sharp, stay nosy, and I will catch you in the next video. This is a saga that proves even the glitziest fairy tales hide the nastiest secrets. Nicole Kidman lost her man, her bond, and nearly her spirit. But in the end, she snatched something way more elite, her freedom. The backstabbing was planned, the scam was deep, and the crash was total. At 58, Nicole is not just resetting. She is reclaiming every single thing that was ripped away. While the guy who tried to crush her rot in the wreckage of a name he torched himself. It makes you think, right? How many other flawless Hollywood stories are just glass houses waiting for one bold soul to throw the first stone? Should Nicole have played quiet for the sake of the business? Or was she a hero for exposing the filth even if it burned down half of Nashville with her? Would you have the guts to blow up your own world to find the reality? Or would you rot in a 46-room palace and keep the lies? Post your thoughts in the comments. I am ready for the war on this one. And if this expose into the Kidman urban wreck finally showed you how this business actually functions, make sure to smash that subscribe button. There is another nightmare story coming that you really do not want to miss.